Work's important, but today, do Americans have to work 9 to 5?
No, I don't work 9 to 5.
I don't think you have to have 9 to 5 jobs.
Do they want to work at all? Yes.
I love my job.
Absolutely. I love all my jobs. I have 3, and I love every single one of them.
Politicians say, we create those good jobs.
We created 1.3 million net new jobs.
400,000 jobs almost immediately.
But is that true?
2 million fewer full-time jobs.
We'll cut the number of full-time jobs in the United States by 2.3 million.
People on the left demand the government force employers to pay them at least $15 an hour. But is $15 enough?
What should the minimum wage be?
$20 an hour.
$50.
$100.
But who will pay that? There are no jobs?
No, there's nothing out there. Nothing.
Is that true?
No, there's plenty of jobs.
We have a lot to cover, so let's get to work. That's our show.
And now, John Stossel.
Have you got a job? Who created it? Watching politics, you'd think government creates jobs. Politicians sure make it sound that way.
We've created more jobs, more new jobs than any other state in the country, save one.
We've created over 100,000 jobs in our state.
1.3 million net new jobs.
Our economy is growing and creating jobs at the fastest pace since 1999.
What? Job growth has been slow since the recession. But Obama was telling the truth there. This year, finally, we did have strong job growth. But I'm sick of these politicians talking about creating jobs. Government can create conditions that foster job growth if government mostly gets out of the way. But it's the private sector that really creates real jobs. Our big government president once said this.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
He meant that government built the roads, educated the workers, and so on. But still, he was wrong. If you've got a business, you did build that. I assume the president's likely successor learned from his foolish mistake. No, here she is, just last year.
Don't let anybody tell you that, it's corporations and businesses that create jobs. You know, that old theory.
Theory? It's just true. Hillary later said she just meant to criticize tax breaks for corporations. But her statement and Obama's reflect their anti-business attitude. Government's good, business is often greedy and bad. And I assume Juan Williams feels that way because he's a proud left-winger, and Hadley Manning of the Independent Women's Forum doesn't like hearing that. But they didn't do it alone, Hadley. The government plays a role.
Well, of course, entrepreneurs, job creators, business people, like the rest of us, use public goods like public roads, and we can acknowledge that. But that statement from the president and from Ms. Clinton significantly understates the amount of individual risk and responsibility that entrepreneurs undertake. And my reading your body language suggests that you maybe don't disagree with her about that.
No, my hat's off to people who are capitalists and who take risk in order to produce profit.
What do these Democrats talk? What are they doing?
I think they're telling you the truth. Hadley touched on this. We have the best economy in the world for a reason, John. It's because of our laws, it's because of our worker protections, our investor protections, our consumer protections.
There needs to be some basic law and order to protect people so that they know when they're making a free exchange, know what they're getting out of the deal, so that they have the certainty and security of operating under law and order, a rule of law. They know what to expect. But by the same token, government has gone far too far in regulating every aspect of business, making it much harder for job creators to employ, hire, and give raises to people who deserve them.
I don't think that's the case at all.
93 million Americans are now out of the workforce. It's a new high number. People are choosing not to work. You don't think that's because of big government sometimes?
I think it's because we went through a terrible recession. I think we also have a demographic.
That was 7 years ago.
Yes, and we've had a very slow recovery.
But that's new. America used to bounce right back. How
used to. I think, again, that was the severity of this recession.
I think we're looking at a private sector that's overregulated. I think that's part of the reason why we haven't bounced back, because people don't see the same rewards for taking that individual risk, for taking that individual responsibility, starting their own company, starting their own enterprise.
Because they may get in trouble for breaking some rule they didn't even know about.
And there's a lot of bureaucratic costs.
You know what? I find this astonishing. In the 1950s, when we had an economic boom in this country, post-World War II, tax rates were higher. Government, in some cases, much more intrusive.
Tax rates were higher, but there weren't all these regulations.
We had lots of regulations, and we had a very aggressive government.
They've never gone away. They always add more.
Oh, well, if you want to say they add more, I don't argue with you. I think government, I think it's a rule, tends to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and not always for better. But it's not the case, it seems to me, that we've never had government as a presence during the period of tremendous economic growth in our country.
For most of the history of America, government was 5% of the economy. Today it's 40%. I would think that slows things down. But this disconnect, when politicians add thousands of pages of new rules and then say, we're creating jobs, lots of people on your side have no problem with that. Here's an example.
Why do people have... They know that the government creates jobs. Every time in our life we knew World War II saved us economically. All our experience locally and historically is the government creates jobs.
Hadley?
Government can create jobs. I could give you a spoon and tell you to dig a hole with it and pay you, and that's a job. But did we really create any value?
While she's talking about wealth, I'm talking about job creation. And without a doubt, government plays a role in job creation.
But here's the thing. If we pursue, as a nation, increased productivity, increased wealth creation, the byproduct is jobs. We do create more jobs.
I don't think that's the case.
Added value.
Even if government rarely creates really useful jobs, government definitely can punish you if you don't pay people enough. So what's enough? America's minimum wage has been $7.25 for 6 years. That hasn't kept up with inflation. Now Juan's cronies want the minimum raised to $15 per hour. That good enough for you, 15?
Well, you know what? At the moment, it hasn't even kept pace with the cost of living in this country. These people are trapped in oftentimes low-income jobs.
A $15 minimum means they'll have no job.
Why is that, Jim?
Because some workplaces won't pay that. They'll automate.
It's basic math. When the cost of a good or service goes up, people buy less of that good or service. That applies to labor as well. When the price of labor goes up, employers employ fewer people.
Juan, if 15 is good, why not 50?
Well, obviously, 50 is going to have a direct consequence on the cost of...
15 doesn't?
No. When you raise the minimum wage, it has almost no impact on people, employers saying, oh, we're going to do less business, close our business, or hire less workers.
I don't think that's true. I think if you look at what's happening in Seattle right now at SeaTac Airport, there are small businesses who say we cannot keep up with this mandated increase in labor costs. And I believe everyone wants more opportunities for people in low-income and middle-income jobs. The question is, how do we get there? A mandated increase in minimum wage is artificial wage growth. Real wage growth means that you do have a better quality of life, that the cost of living for you is lower than whatever your real wage is.
Well, I hope that what John said is true, that these minimum wage jobs would be a stepping stone, Hadley, that it would put you in position, if you are a good worker, to get a good
But we're taking away that stepping stone from certain people. Low-income, low-skilled workers who can't even get their foot in the door.
Oh, no, I